that wanted to go the best. He wanted to be the best he could. And he had no time for people who were wishy-washy or didn't care or weren't sincere. And it didn't matter where they were from. And I could tell that this guy didn't care that I was Wilo or Australian or Caucasian or whatever. He knew that I knew that this is the way to go. That's through spirit and not through nationality or religion or any of that stuff, which people generally bond through. I was going to be Bruce's man that came in and saved him at the end and got him out of this, some kind of a house, pyramid thing with a top floor. And I came in there, and that was going to be my introduction. And I was like a mentor. And he was like super physical, but I was wiser. And then I was going to fade out again and then come into another movie with him later. And that's what we're talking about.
Whatever Game of Death might have been, it remains the final work of the greatest martial artist the world has ever seen. To the world, Bruce Lee was a movie star, but to the martial arts community, he was the man who revolutionized the fighting arts. Bruce Lee, in his lifetime, authorized only 3 people to teach on his behalf: Taki Kimura, James Lee, and Dan Inosanto.
At the time of Bruce Lee was alive, there was only 3 of us that were sanctioned by Bruce Lee to teach it. That was Taki Kimura, and James Lee, of course, passed away, and he was of Oakland, and myself.
Taki Kimura taught at Bruce Lee's Seattle school. Bruce ranked him as his most senior instructor in Jun Fan Kung Fu. Today, Taki continues to teach in Seattle. He is also the keeper of Bruce Lee's final resting place at Lakeview Cemetery.
Right now, we're up in Capitol Hill, Lakeview Cemetery, which is probably the first or second oldest cemetery in the city. And Bruce was, when he died, and Linda brought him back here to have him buried here in Seattle, for the reason that this was his second love as far as where he wanted to live. And she looked down the hill down there beyond that little columbarium or whatever you call it, and that's where most of the Chinese are buried. And so she looked there first, but she was looking elsewhere, and she came up here and she found that this gave a very panoramic view of the University of Washington over there where we went to school, Lake Washington over that overlooked up here, and so she felt this was the real ideal place for him to be. So this is where she had him buried. And of course, Brandon, having died, why he was buried next to his father here.
Dan Inosanto is the only man to be certified by Bruce Lee as an instructor in Jeet Kune Do. He has faithfully continued to develop and pass on Jeet Kune Do since Bruce's death in 1973.
They can be found in Western boxing.
In the early days, Dan was the instructor of Bruce Lee's Los Angeles Jeet Kune Do school.
This is the original logbook of the attendance of the Chinatown School, which started in 1967. And at this time, he appointed me as the head instructor, and he would oversee this by coming in and watching me teach from time to time. If he wasn't filming, he would come in on Saturday and Sunday and sometimes teach the class or sometimes observe the class. But the majority of times he came in, he would just take over the class and teach, and I would just assist.
Dan continues to teach in Los Angeles. His academy is a meeting and training place for martial artists from all over the world. The academy is not just a teaching location. It houses many of the original banners and training equipment items from Bruce Lee's martial arts schools.
This is Sifu Bruce's original heavy bag that he used back in the 60s. It's still holding up pretty good, so it's quite big. I think it's pretty close to 200 some pounds. During this time period, we used to train because we didn't have any Thai pads, so Sifu Bruce advocated the use of using the football forearm guard. This here is the original punching shield, that his own personal punching shield, in fact. This was used as in the Way of the Dragon. If you notice this, he had one part. I had one arm, he had the other arm, and this was used in that picture, Way of the Dragon. This is the sign or the plaque that we had here. This is the truth in combat is different for each individual in the style. Research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useful, and add specifically what is your own. This here used to hang in the Chinatown school along with other albums.
One of the key areas that distinguishes Jeet Kune Do from the other martial arts is that its concept allows the individual to develop personal combative attributes, as opposed to the classical martial arts, which merely teach a set type of technique.
As far as my memory will serve me, it started off as a style, and for about maybe a month or a month and a half, and then he realized a style was too confining, it was too short. Then he realized that the combat is usually geared under certain principles that you would follow and certain concepts you would go. So he said, JKD is more of a concept, and it should be constantly researched. It's kind of like I refer to it as research and development, and that you would research different fighting arts, which he did extensively. That's why I find it very humorous now that people want to go back to the original. Now the original JKD is what they refer to as Jun Fan Kung Fu. That has certain stances, certain type of footwork, certain type of kicks, which was the basis for what he called at that time Jeet Kune Do. But Jeet Kune Do, as he said, I have not invented a new style or a method of training, whether it be Chinese, Japanese, Okinawan, Korean, or whatever. He says, these are just a way so I can learn about life and about combat in general, because life is combat, as he